So to use clear stamps, you peel off your backing sheet off your stamp set. You select the stamp you want to use. I'm going to use the letter M. And then you need to put it onto an acrylic stamping block. And I've got a few different sizes here. I'm going to use this smallest size because that suits the size of the stamp best. Then I'm going to get my ink, and I'm just going to position my stamp over my ink pad, and I'm just going to gently tap about 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. And then I'm going to push and lift off. I'll just show that to you again. Tap, 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 push and lift. I'm just going to clean off my ink, and I'm using a damp chamois, but you can use a baby wipe if you want, or a damp lint-free cloth. And if you go to my video about cleaning your clear stamps, you'll get a bit more information. I just want to show you the way that kids sometimes stamp incorrectly. And what they sometimes do is they'll press way too hard. They don't just do a gentle tap. So they'll push right down, and sometimes they'll be uneven as well. And sometimes you'll get stamp collecting around the edge of your acrylic block around there. So what you want to do is just get them to lightly tap, not push down as hard as they can. Tap, tap, and then they can push down hard on the paper, push and lift. I'll just rub that ink off. I don't need to rub it off now, but I'm just going to. Another thing that kids do incorrectly sometimes is that they will do the tapping okay, so they don't press too hard. So they tap, 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 but then when they get to the paper, they suddenly take their hand off, and then they kind of go like this and they wiggle it around. And if that happens, you'll get a bit of a blurry image, which we don't want. So it's just tap, 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 tap. Keep their hand on the block without wiggling it around, and lift. Another thing that sometimes they'll do is they'll have their fingers going below the block, and then when they go to tap, they'll get their fingers in the ink. So what they want to do is make sure that they're just holding that acrylic block just in the tips of their fingers. So you want to make sure that you give the kids clear instructions and give them some demonstrations on how to use the stamps so that you get the best results. But I've used stamps, clear stamps, with kindy age children and pre-primary or prep age children, and they get the hang of it pretty quickly. So I just wanted to talk a bit more about acrylic block sizes. And as I said, the M fits better on this little block here. It will fit on this rectangle block. But there's a little bit more space around here which we don't really need, and that's why I chose this small round block for this stamp. So the smaller your stamp, the smaller the acrylic block you need, and obviously the bigger stamp, the bigger block you'll need, but you don't want to have it too big. So with this letter G, now it will fit on this block here, but there's a lot of extra room around here, around the stamp. And when we go to stamp that, it's going to wiggle around a little bit more. It's a little bit more unstable with all this extra space around it. So for this letter G stamp, this rectangle block is a better size because it has less acrylic block space around the stamp. And when you go to stamp it, it's going to just sort of automatically stamp correctly and nice and flat. And if I get these face stamps here, and I'll just grab this circle, happy face. Now this one will fit on this larger block and it will stamp okay. So tap, 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 push and lift. But again, you've got this extra space around here, which we don't really need. And so this stamp is better on this small block here, or it could even be used on this rectangle. I think it just fits on there. So when we go to stamp that face, we're going to get our stamp going automatically nice and flat without much wiggle around room. And when you've finished using your stamps, you want to clean the ink off and you want to put it back on the sheet that it was, the set that it's come from. And the backing sheet needs to go back on it because that protects the stamps from any dust, dirt, fluff that might be on your work surface. So you just want to pop that on there to just keep it nice and protected.